Can you give us a brief introduction of what you do?
Yes, welcome to our factory. We are located in Serang. We are wine and spirit producer. We produce through fermentation process. The tanks in the background, there is our fermentation tanks. So a lot of the raw materials will be fermented up to 2 weeks in those tanks. And then upon completion, we do some filtration process, and we have a filling tank, filling machine over there where the bottles are, and the finished product will be shipped to our warehouse.
What does he do for work?
Okay, let me introduce you to our manager. His name is Paharja. Yes, Paharja is in charge of production. So from the blending to bottling and finishing, he will be in charge in handling those tasks. So please continue with Paharja. Thank you.
Pak, apa proses fermentasi utama yang terlibat dalam produksi alkohol?
Oke, poinnya dalam proses produksi alkohol itu kita mengambil bahan baku berupa air, terus gula yang bisa didapatkan dari, karena kita industrinya di Indonesia, gula didapatkan dari tebu. Nah, tebu itu akan setelah proses kristalisasi gula, dia akan menghasilkan molasses. Nah, molasses itu yang dipakai untuk bahan dasar utamanya produksi alkoholnya itu. Karena dalam alkohol itu komponen utama adalah air, gula, dan raginya.
Oke. Baik Pak, bagaimana ragi dan gula berinteraksi untuk menghasilkan alkohol selama fermentasi?
Oke, ragi dan gula itu ada proses dalam tangki yang anaerob, di mana kalau ragi kan tujuannya adalah memakan gula, sehingga dalam proses fermentasi itu adalah gula yang ada dalam pati yang ada seperti di molasses itu akan diabsorb semuanya. Dan ada proses aku lupa namanya, tapi ada proses chemical di dalamnya itu yang sehingga akhirnya gulanya 0, tapi kadar alkoholnya akan naik.
Oke. Dapatkah Bapak menjelaskan peran enzim dalam memecah karbohidrat kompleks menjadi gula yang dapat difermentasi?
Agak pertanyaannya agak susah. Untuk yang enzim itu banyak jenis macam enzimnya, dan masing-masing proses pembuatan fermentasi itu jenisnya macam-macam. Seperti kalau kita buat alkohol aja itu pakai bisa amilase, tapi kalau kita mau pakai yang bir dan lainnya ada beberapa macam enzim. Tapi nggak cuma enzim juga ada protein tambahan juga atau nutrien yang harus ditambahkan untuk ngebelen rasa dan lain sebagainya itu.
Oh, jadi ada banyak ya Pak. Jenis bahan mentah apa yang biasa digunakan untuk produksi alkohol dan bagaimana kontribusinya terhadap proses kimia?
Bahan mentahnya sih simpel, cuman yang penting harus ada raginya. Yang kedua adalah harus ada pati yang mengandung gulanya supaya bisa raginya makan sama air. Setelah itu diproses proses fermentasi atau di dalam suatu tangki lah diaduk sehingga mereka tercampur secara alami. Sama seperti proses pembuatan tape, diragiin habis itu selesai.
Oke. Makasih ya Pak.
Hi sir, is it okay if we ask you some questions?
Sure.
Can you elaborate on the distillation process and how it separates alcohol from the fermented mixture?
Okay, so what happened with the wash? The wash is actually a mixture of water and the alcohol itself through fermentation process that has taken place, right? So the wash, we boil it basically. So since ethyl alcohol has a boiling point of around 78 degrees Celsius and water is around 100 degrees Celsius, so what happened is during fractional distillation, we separate the alcohol which comes up earlier at 78 degrees and we locate it in a ethyl tank, whereas the remainder, which is the tail, we call it, at 100 degrees Celsius, it will be separated as just distilled water.
What factors influence the yield and quality of alcohol during the distillation phase?
Okay, we have to make sure the tanks are thoroughly clean. So sterilization, the hygiene factor is very important. And of course, during production process, stable heat, stable energy source to boil the wash is very important. not have unregulated temperatures swinging, it will affect the quality of the ethyl alcohol produced.
How does the chemical composition of the final product vary between different types of alcoholic beverages?
Yes, that is a very good question. When we ferment different raw materials, there is a big difference between fruit-based raw materials such as oranges, grapes. When we compare that to, for example, sugarcane or molasses, they have different esters, hydrocarbons within the raw materials, such as acetals, such as esters. Those are aromatic chemical compounds in those different raw materials. So fermenting and distilling different raw materials will definitely give different texture, different aroma in terms of finished product.
Okay. And finally, are there specific additives or catalysts used in the chemical process of alcohol production, and what is their role?
Basically, for producing food-grade ethyl alcohols, the general production will be the major variables in terms of production output. There are different techniques on using probably open fire to do the distillation compared to using gas-powered heaters. So I would say the technical aspect in terms of production will determine the style of the finished product.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for having us.
Hello everyone, my name is Aileen from JCB, and since our group is talking about alcohol production, I'll be telling you some information on alcohol. Since Hazel, my group mate, will be explaining about the general formula of alcohol and the structure, I will tell you which functional group that alcohol belongs in.
Hello everyone, my name is Charissa Hazel, and just like what my friend Aileen has mentioned, today I will be explaining about the general formula of alcohols. So the general formula of alcohols is CN H2N plus 1 OH. So it consists of carbon, hydrogen, as well as an hydroxide. And all of the organic chemistry compounds that fall under the same group as alcohol will have the same general formula, and they will have a specific name to them which corresponds to the type of alcohol they are. Here are some examples of the types of alcohols. There is methanol, ethanol, propanol, butanol, pentanol, and hexanol. The prefixes of these alcohols corresponds to the number of carbon and hydrogen atoms that correlates with the general formula of alcohols.
I will tell you which functional group that alcohol belongs in. It's called hydroxyl group. Basically means they contain OH. What does it mean to belong in the same functional group? It means that the compounds will have similar chemical properties, which mean they will undergo similar chemical reactions, but they will have different physical properties. Moving on, I'll be talking about the reactions that produce alcohol. There are two. First is by adding steam to alkene, and the other one is by fermentation using yeast. And I'll be talking about adding the addition of steam to alkene. For this reaction, you will need three things. First is a catalyst. You will need phosphorus acid as the catalyst, and you will need a temperature of 300 degrees Celsius and a pressure of 60 atm. So the reaction goes on like this. For example, I will be using ethene as this example. Ethene is, as you know, a C2H4. So this is the structure. There's a double bond carbon, you can see, and you'll be adding this to steam, which is H connected to OH. And by using the terms and conditions I've mentioned earlier, phosphorus acid, 300 degrees Celsius and 60 atm, you will get this as a result, C2H5OH, which is alcohol or ethanol. So how does this reaction happen? You see, the carbon double bond from ethene will break, and each of the carbon will connect itself to H and OH, which is why the structure is like this. And this is alcohol. And this reaction, the steam reaction, is very fast acting. It's also non-stop and reversible, and it produces pure alcohol, which is why this reaction is very good. So these are the advantages of this reaction. But you'll be using alkene, which is petroleum, so it's non-renewable, and a lot of energy will be needed for this reaction, which is why a lot of money will be wasted.
Okay, since Aileen has told you how to produce alcohols the first way, which is to do the addition reaction to alkenes using steam, the second way is through fermentation, and this will be the ones used mainly in the alcoholic beverage industry, just like our project. So the fermentation using yeast without oxygen is basically just like anaerobic respiration in biology. So the equation is C6H12O6 and added with yeast, so it becomes 2C2H5OH, which is an ethanol, and then plus 2 carbon dioxide plus energy. So there are a few pros and cons to these two ways of producing alcohol. So the first way, which is addition, the pros are it is fast, non-stop, and it produces pure alcohol. Unlike fermentation, it is quite slow and it stops happening. This reaction stops working when it reaches a certain percentage of the alcohol. So when a certain percentage of alcohol is produced, the reaction stops. And it does not produce pure alcohol, just like what we can see through the equation. It also produces carbon dioxide and energy. And it needs to go through fractional distillation again to obtain the alcohol. But addition does have a few cons as well. So it is non-renewable, it is very costly due to the addition of phosphoric acid as a catalyst, as well as the high temperatures and pressures, and it is reversible. So even if you get pure alcohol, it is still quite prone that the alcohol can turn back to its usual form before the reaction happens, because it is a reversible reaction, so you would not be able to obtain that much product at the end of the day. While fermentation, it is renewable, so that is what's good about it. And mainly in the alcoholic beverage industry, we use fermentation instead of addition. So like I said earlier, drinks like vodka, gin, beer, wine, spirits, all alcoholic beverages, they use fermentation. That's why when we drink alcohol, it has this certain sour taste that is due to the production of alcohol through fermentation. The only difference that they have is for example, between beer and wine is that their sources of fermentation is different. From beer, it is usually through the fermentation of I believe wheat, while wine, it is from fruits like grapes. So that is why they're different drinks. It's just that they go through the same process of fermentation to get that alcohol. And I will also be explaining more about the types of alcohol in certain drinks that you can find in the alcoholic beverage industry. Okay, so for beers, there are a few different types of alcohol present in them. Like I said earlier, beers are the products generally from the fermentation of wheat. So we have phenethyl alcohol, which is an aromatic fusel alcohol, and it has a relatively strong rose-like odor. And it also has trirosol and tritofol, which is formed during the fermentation, and it also has benzyl alcohols. While for wines, which is the product of the fermentation of fruits like grapes, we have 1-pentanol, 4-methyl-1-pentanol, 3-methyl-1-pentanol, Z2-pentan-1-ol, 1-hexanol, and other alcohols present because of the fermentation of grapes. While the next one is spirits, which is what our chemistry and industry project is. We visited a gin and spirits factory. So this is what they are doing in their factories, just like what the videos has said when we interviewed the managers of the factories. They have these very big, humongous tubes for fermentation, and that is how they obtain their alcohol. So some spirits, such as vodka, contain a few flavor compounds and consist of essentially ethanol and water. in contrast to whiskeys, cognacs, brandies, and rums, frequently contain large numbers of different volatile compounds. So methanol is also present in spirits as well. So those are the few types of alcohols that you can find in different types of alcoholic beverages.